Hey everybody, how you doing? IntoWeapons back again with you. Got another video here for you on the upgrade to the WASR 1063 rifle. This is video number 5 out of the series that I'm doing on this rifle, changing it from its original configuration into a home defense type rifle. My previous video was on the muzzle brake. That was video number 4. Then video number 3 was our AK night sights. Video number 2 was our DTS Lynch cover, which is that side folding left hand charging handle. And then video number 1 was our recoil pistol grip here by ATI. Today we're going to be talking about the replacement of the lower handguard and upper handguard. There's a ton of options available out there, and I really wanted something that was going to be as lightweight as possible, but also integrated a sight into the upper handguard, being that I wanted something that was more red dot, easier to use for a home defense type situation. So one of the things that I wanted with the red dot was also to have a co-witness with my iron sights. There are very few options on the market that come to that type of sighting system. There are a few good options, but the one that I decided to go with was actually the Midwest Industries AK Universal Handguard with the Optic specific top cover. This one here, as you might, if you are subscribed to my channel and watch my videos, the original plan was to have kind of their standard rail put on, which has all the the different Picatinny Weaver type rails all the way down, up and down it. When I went to purchase it, I actually noticed that this one was listed on their website. I'm not sure if this is a new product or I just didn't notice it the first time around, but this one is the AKSS, model number MI-AKSS. Ran about $160 with shipping and handling. And this one is a smooth side, which is a little bit nicer in my opinion because you don't have a ton of rails on there, which I'm not going to use. They do have a little bit of a modular rail that you're able to put exactly where you want it to have a nice accessory put on there, but again, I'm not really needing that, so I think having that smooth side will be a little bit better of a feel. It'll reduce the weight hopefully a little bit on here, and I think it looks a little bit cooler as well. So what we're going to do is install the top cover here, which is specifically designed for the Burris Fast Fire. That has not arrived yet. That'll be a separate video, but it is a top cover that is specifically designed to have that installed on there and provide you a co-witness. I believe it's the lower 1/3 co-witness with this particular one. I did get an extra add-on here, which was $7.50. This was the receiver block, which will go into the front of the receiver here and just make it look a little nicer, more or less. It really doesn't have much of a function as far as holding things together or doing anything. It's just, again, more of a looks type thing. You really don't necessarily need that. But with this particular rail, it comes with some Loctite and obviously the screws and hardware that you need to put it together. It's got what I think is probably a clamp here for the barrel to put this on and secure it. And it also has the lower handguard, which again is modular, so you're able to move these rails any which way you want, including the bottom rail. You can put them on the sides. There's one on the left hand side here as well. But this should be hopefully pretty easy installation, guys. What I'm going to do is read through the directions first, and then we'll come back and we'll try and install on this. Alright, the first step of this process is going to be disassembly of the rifle, and obviously most people know to disassemble an AK rifle, but I really didn't want to leave a video incomplete as far as the whole process, so we'll go ahead and check, make sure it's unloaded. We'll go ahead and pop the top cover off. We'll remove the recoil spring, pull back our bolt carrier and bolt. I could leave the bolt on, but can also remove it. At that point then we can remove our front gas tube here, and what we got to do is just rotate our lever up, rotate our gas tube off. You might have to wiggle that lever back and forth a little bit to let it come free. Sometimes that happens. There we go. And then you can put that back down. Then in the front lower handguard here, there is a little lever here that you got to just kind of push up, which will allow this retaining cap to move forward and release your lower handguard. And there you go. You have your what would have been your lower handguard, and if I had an upper handguard piece of wood on here, would be on there. For the upper handguard, what I like to do, you have the wood on here. If you actually set this in a vise like that, you can just twist it right off. It's really easy. So if you need a video on that, go ahead and search that out on YouTube. But very easy to do. At that point, then we should be ready to do the install. The directions did state that they want you to put the front cap here for the lower handguard back in place and put it back to where it needs to go there. I guess that's not going to even be used as far as I understand, but we'll have to see, I guess. And at that point we're ready to do the install, so we'll come back and do that. So one thing I did want to point out right away before we start the install is I did mention that I added on this little receiver block cap essentially for $7.50. This is not necessary, it is optional, but it does make your fit and finish look a lot better essentially. So as you're looking at the lower receiver here in the front right here, you can see there's a big space there. With this handguard, when it goes over, you're going to see kind of the corners here going down into the gun. This little cap essentially goes right over the top of that and covers that up and provides you just a little bit better of a finish or look on it. So mine is a little bit loose. It said it might need a little bit of filing or something like that if yours is tight. Mine looks like it's just going to drop right in and we should be all set. Okay, so the installation seems pretty straightforward according to the directions. We'll see how much of an issue it gives me. I'm not the most qualified person for gunsmithing, but I do my best. I did, like I mentioned, have the retaining cap brought back to its original position. You lock it back down according to the directions. You'll take your rail here, and I noticed that the modular rails that they have that you can attach onto here do not have bolts on the inside, so you can actually just unscrew them from the outside, move them, screw them back in. These little holes here are threaded, so it makes that very easy. So that's actually a really cool feature. You don't really need to remove any of this to adjust the rails on there. But essentially we're going to slide it up into this position like that. We're going to go ahead and take the barrel clamp that they provide here, and we're going to put it down in the downward fashion like this, so you can kind of see that the holes are going to be going in towards each other there. Should be a nice tight fit. And then they're going to use the provided screws, the longer ones here, to go ahead and secure these guys in. And they say to finger tighten, which is probably what I'll do. Just using my Allen wrench though, just kind of getting it in place, getting it started. Looks like that one's in. They do require, or want you, according to the directions, to use some of the provided Loctite thread locker. I'm actually going to wait on that until I know at the very end that everything is coming together how it should, and then I'll probably end up going back later on and putting some of that on there. So I'm going to go ahead and lock down these screws and we'll come back. Alright guys, so we should be ready for final installation here. I had to do a little bit of fitting and add a little bit of a brace here, and I'll show you what I had to do here. This lower handguard essentially just slips up from underneath, but what I was finding is when I was putting it on, this handguard, kind of like this right here, is just sliding way too far up. It's not allowing it to be lined up like it's supposed to, and then the top cover wasn't lining up. So what I actually did was went back and add a little bit of a brace down in here. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that very easily. Oh, there we go. But just a screw and a bolt, and what that does is it rests up against the barrel here, which doesn't allow it to go any further than I want it to go. Previously, before I had that brace on, it was actually going further up, and again it wasn't allowing the top cover to seat properly and secure like it was supposed to. So that seemed to fix the problem. I just put a little bit of Loctite, used one of the provided holes here, and just used a screw that was a little bit smaller in diameter so I didn't mess up the threads in case I ever want to go back and use that. So that was one problem I figured out here. Now that we got that figured out, we can essentially pop this right up into place like this. We'll use our barrel clamp here that was provided. We'll slide that down over the top, and we'll go ahead and hand tighten these. We don't want to overdo it, and I always, when I'm screwing, I always start with one corner, and then I'll kind of angle it, make sure it looks like it's centered and everything's lined up correctly. Then I'll go to the opposite corner across, kind of like you're removing a tire with the lug nuts. Kind of the same concept. You get the equal amount of torque on each one. Then I'll jump over to this side. And again, they recommend that you use some Loctite on these, and this one here. But I'm going to wait on that until a little bit later on after I function test to make sure everything comes together right and I don't have any issues. So that'll be just a later project. Loctite isn't a huge priority, although it is pretty nice. And again, we don't want to over tighten those. Alright, once we got that on, we're kind of lined up how we want it. What we're going to do is replace our gas tube here. And we'll just push that down into place. This one's a little tight. There we go. And then from that point, there's a brace on here that was part of this barrel clamp that's actually going to be pushing up onto this gas tube. And what we want to do first is probably put our top cover on and then check to make sure that it's straight just by looking down the sight system and kind of comparing it to the front sight block, and everything looks pretty good there. Just make sure that your holes on the sides here line up with the parts of the barrel clamp that it needs to be screwed into. That was kind of my issue with this being pushed up far enough. Those holes weren't aligning with where I needed to go. So once we kind of verified everything looks good there, we'll go ahead and use the appropriate set screws, and these are really tiny little things here that they provided to clamp in that handguard, more or less, or clamp in the gas tube. We'll put that right up in these holes here and spin these in. And that's just locking that down a little bit. And obviously when you go to clean your gun, you'll have to remove those clamps. And the directions weren't horribly clear on that, so I'm hoping I'm doing this right and that this is the correct screw for what holes this is supposed to be for. Alright guys, so I noticed I had a little bit of an issue with this gas tube. I wasn't able to clamp it back down like I was normally able to. I had to go back and just readjust this barrel band a little bit so it would sit like it was supposed to. Now that I have the upper gas tube in, I'm pushing it down so we know that it's locked in and that it's able to be locked in. And now we can go back and put our set screws in this thing and tighten that up a little bit onto this gas tube here. So go ahead and just tighten that real loosely onto that, hand tighten I should say. We don't want to do too much. And we'll get this side as well. And just hand tighten it right up to there. At that point we'll drop our top cover on there, and I'll give you an idea of these holes needing to be lined up here. As you can see, that hole, and there's two on the other side as well. They do have to line up with that barrel clamp, otherwise it won't go in. And then we'll just use the provided provided screws here, and make sure I got the right size Allen wrench, hex screw, I should say. Of course, none of mine are going to work. There we go. And then we'll go ahead and put these flathead anti-rotating screws in here. And I'll go ahead and twist it up here so you guys can see. There we go. Pretty simple. I'll go ahead and do this off camera so I'm not wasting a ton of time, and I'll be right back with you. Alright, and we have our finished product. After putting those screws in the top cover here, as you can see, everything is together. It is tight, there's no wiggle, everything is as it should be. Looks pretty decent. As you can see, the lower handguard fits perfectly and doesn't have any big gaps or anything like that. The only gap I really see is this top cover, and you can see it's just a little bit short of meeting the full length of that upper handguard, and or the gas port or whatever the thing is there. So overall the fit is pretty good though. I mean, you can't really tell from a distance, if there's any gaps or anything like that. And I have to tell you, it feels really light. It's a nice lightweight system, modular system, so I'm actually really happy with it. I can move these rails up and down as I need it. I can put my angled foregrip on the bottom, which is the plan for this gun. And then of course my Burris Fast Fire up there, which will allow me a co-witness with my iron sight. So overall pretty happy with the purchase on this. We'll go ahead and reassemble the rifle here real quick for you guys. Just in case you need to know that step if you're doing this installation. Put the bolt back in our bolt carrier, like that. Put our bolt carrier back in the rifle, throw that forward, recoil spring in, dust cover on, function test. Make sure your safety still works. Looks good. And that's everything, guys. We have the front handguards and top cover replaced. Hope you guys enjoy. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, as always, I appreciate you watching. Until next time, take it easy.